You're watching BCTV. We're all about Brantford. You're watching BCTV, Brantford Government Television, a service of Brantford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Brantford.
All right, good evening. My name is Peter Basserman. I chair the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Commission for the town of Brantford, Connecticut. It is 7:03 on the evening of Thursday, August 11th. This meeting is a Zoom meeting. It will be conducted in accordance with Public Act 22.3. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. Clearly, when you need to speak, you can unmute and talk. Raise your hand feature will help us identify the need for you to talk and your desire to talk. Let's see, we are operating tonight with an agenda that I believe was revised, and the appropriate agenda for this evening is one issued on August 8th. Am I correct, Katie?
You are correct.
Okay. At this point in time, I will issue a call to order. For purposes of the meeting, we're going to go around and have the commissioners and staff identify themselves as to participation on the call. First up, Mark Steinberg.
Commissioner Steinberg here.
Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro here.
Commissioner Papatonis.
Commissioner Papatonis here.
Commissioner Meinson.
Commissioner Meinson here.
And Commissioner Basserman here. I assume that the iPhone identification on the screen is not a commissioner. So we have a quorum. All commissioners are seated and can participate tonight in the discussion, as well as any votes that are taken. We have 3 minutes for approval. We're first up on the agenda. First off is the July 14th regular meeting minutes. These were mailed out and they are also on the town's website. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Commissioner Steinberg, I'll make a motion to approve the July 14th minutes.
And hopefully there's a second.
Commissioner Finaro, second.
Great. Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor of approving the minutes for July 14, 2022, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there
Aye.
any abstentions? Are there any declines? Okay, next up, July 28th, this is a special meeting held, and I guess, do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
This is Commissioner Steinberg. I'll make a motion to approve the special meeting of July 28th minutes.
Okay, and a second, please.
Second that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Finaro. I had one question, I guess, on the minutes. And it was on page, where are you? And it may be my memory is not correct on this, but we were talking about when Attorney Shansky raised the issue on the deed restriction, and it says she does not believe the conservation deed restriction is held by the agency. And I guess I thought it was whether it was enforceable by the agency. Do I have that wrong?
I think that might have been her intent, but she said held.
Okay.
So that's what I put.
Okay,
So maybe she would like to clarify.
Well, there is a motion on the table, so
Oh.
the commission shouldn't open it up to general comment.
how do we
We can-
deal with a situation where the articulated language may be different than the intent?
Well, we could go back and check the language and either confirm that it's correct and or make a more general statement that touches on the topic rather than is directive in one way,
So if
or
that's,
strike it.
can we hold off on approving these minutes until we've had a chance to do that?
We can do that. Commissioner Steinberg, do you withdraw your motion?
I withdraw my motion to approve the special meeting minutes.
So staff will take another look at that.
And then we have the August 2nd, 2022 special meeting, the site walk minutes. Do we have a motion for that short and sweet set of minutes?
This is Commissioner Steinberg, I'll make a motion to accept the August 2nd walkthrough minutes.
Commissioner Canaro will second that.
Okay, any discussion on those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any extensions? Any noes? Great. Minutes are approved. Okay, next section, we have applications for receipt. First up, Inland Wetland 220704, 819, 841 East Main Street, the proposed construction of a 36,560 square foot medical research and development building with associated site improvements. And let's see, Jamie, can you just frame this for us?
The application is for receipt. It's not actionable. There, I believe are parties present from the applicant team, so I will let them do the introductory presentation. I will mention, I think this might be a site where the commission may want to do a site walk. And that we were required based on proximity to notice Guilford and North Branford. The property actually extends into both of those towns slightly. We've received comment back from North Branford that they have no comment. And I believe the Guilford Inland Wetland Commission met last night, so we have not received it. We don't know yet whether or not they have any comment, but we'll share it if they do. And then another thing I wanted to mention is that I do have a little bit of a question regarding the fee that we should try to address tonight if we can. But I think we'll let them do the presentation first. All right.
Okay, and for the applicant, we have,
Attorney Marjorie Shansky, Mr. Chairman. And I'm here with Chris Gagnon from BL Company. Rich Snarsky is our soil scientist. Unfortunately, he had a conflict this evening, but Chris is prepared to briefly discuss the content of Mr. Snarsky's report, which is in the application. And I will pretty much just turn this over to Chris, though I will say this. I spoke to Kevin McGee, the environmental planner in the town of Guilford this morning, picking up the cue from Jamie that the Wetlands Agency met last evening in Guilford, and they did review the application, and Kevin said to me that they have no interest in this application. It is remote from the upland review area of the portion of the wetlands that extend into Guilford, and the pond, which is the resource, is at an elevation higher than the work being performed on our parcel. So yes, it is a fascinating parcel. Eric Knapp wrote similarly for the town of North Branford. And with that, I hand this over to Chris Gagnon.
this is Peter Basserman. I was remiss in not giving staff an opportunity to identify themselves in the roll call. So can we do that now? Jamie Frederick,
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent present.
Katie Blanchett,
Katie Blanchett, Inland Wetland Associate, present.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Attorney Shansky, proceed.
No apology required. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I again pass this over to Mr. Gagnon.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right? We've got a lot of monitors and microphones, and I just want to make sure the right one is is being heard.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Chris Gagnon. I'm a professional engineer licensed here in Connecticut, and I work for BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway in Meriden. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I understand that this is an acceptance hearing, and the intent would be to give you a quick rundown and discuss possibly scheduling a site walk. As we tend to do with our projects, engineers can drone on and on about many things that maybe the commission and chair don't necessarily want to hear at this acceptance hearing. So please, Mr. Commissioner, if I'm going too far into it, let me know. But otherwise, I will give a rundown of the site and the proposed work and regulated activities and resource areas, and we'll take it from there if that's all right.
Sounds good.
Can I share my screen? I think.
1 minute. Try now.
All right, let's see if we can work this out here. Screen number 2. How many screens do we have? Does that look like a survey to you folks?
Pretty much.
Okay, sounds good. Just want to make sure the right thing was up. So as briefly discussed, this project is actually unique in my career in that it not only is adjacent to multiple municipalities, the project itself actually falls into 3 municipalities. It's on the corner of Route 1 and Goldsmith Road on the far eastern side of the town of Brantford. This yellow line here indicates the town line with Guilford to the east, northeast, and North Brantford to the northwest. A little corner of the property falls in North Brantford, and a chunk of it is in Guilford as well. For the proposed application and proposed work for this application, the entire improvements are limited to the town of Brantford. It's just the way the site laid out. There was no kind of magic to that or anything. It just it's how it fit on the site. In the future, we may be looking to do some minor trail type improvements and amenities in the town of Guilford, but that is in the future. So the application in front of everyone today is limited to work within the town of Brantford. As I said, we are on Route 1 and Goldsmith Road, and you can see from the contours on the site that its high point is on the northeast side. As Marjorie mentioned, the pond that is in Guilford is actually at a higher elevation than our development, and the site drains from the northeast to the southwest, essentially. A small portion of the site drains westerly towards Route 1, and the resources on site in Brantford is this pocket of wetlands right here, which is fed mainly by stormwater runoff and groundwater, as I understand it. Not shown on the survey, but shown in other plans, which I will get to in a second. There are a couple of off-site wetlands located across Route 1, essentially fed by stormwater drainage from Route 1 and along our frontage. And those upland review areas on the plans are depicted on our plans and part of our calculations as well. So that's really a brief overview of the site. It's little over 9.3 acres, and with the majority of it being in Brantford. The just following up on those offsite wetlands as discussed, there is a pocket of offsite wetlands on the northern side of the site across Route 1, and another pocket here on the off the southwestern corner of the property. As you can see, the upland review area for these wetlands is depicted on the site. These wetlands were delineated based on available data shared with us from town staff. Our scientists did not delineate these wetlands across the street, so they are shown based on available data. I think I have the GIS map, showing where. So it was this is from your website, from your GIS website, provided to us by town staff, and this is what we used to depict these wetlands on our plans and show the associated upland review areas. The proposed development itself consists of a 36,500 square foot structure. Here we are in the center of the site. Due to the grades of the site, it will be in some cut on one side, some fill on the other side. We are providing access to the site off of kind of 3 access points. One is off of Goldsmith Road, and 2 others are off of Route 1. The site is undeveloped, as you saw on the survey. We are proposing, let me just make sure I get the number right, 125 parking spaces as it's shown today with this layout. And what the results of this development produce a total of 10,000 square feet of upland review area impacts, about 4,000 square feet here at our Goldsmith Road driveway entrance. And then the remainder of them are related to the upland review area associated with the wetlands that are across the street. We have almost 2,000 square feet of upland review area activities for this driveway right here. And then we have another 4,000-ish square feet of activities for utility installation. All the public utilities are in Route 1: sewer, water, gas, sanitary. They're all in Route 1. So we are proposing to pull them from this location, and that happens to be in the upland review area of this offsite wetland. But that is where it makes the most sense to pull them into the building. And then there's some minor grading impacts, activities, associated with this upland review area. So that is the site plan. As I said, the building is about 36,000 square feet. There's another plus or minus 74,000 square feet of other impervious areas related to the parking and sidewalks, and for a total of about 111,000 square feet, or approximately 2.5 acres of proposed impervious area as a result of this development. The utilities plan, as discussed, shows the utilities coming off of Route 1 here, which are these impacts. We have, of course, this driveway I talked about, and then the stormwater management system, which has been, that's not what I want to do, which has been designed to comply with all requirements in terms of water quality and water quantity. It is shown here. We need to have a underground detention system located off the southwestern corner, which then discharges in this location right here, about 75 feet of undisturbed upland review area prior to release to the wetlands. And we have another larger above ground detention basin on the southern, was it southeastern southern corner of the site, which also discharges to the wetlands on site. And we have about 100 feet of undisturbed upland review area prior to discharge. The stormwater rates to this wetland area are essentially the same pre and post. It has a slight reduction in post-development runoff rates. That's just how the stormwater calculations go. And another important consideration for this commission is always the erosion control. And this site has been designed with 3 temporary sediment traps during construction. So these blue lines depict the drainage areas to the temporary sediment traps. So we have 1 trap here, we have another trap here, and we have a 3rd trap that is located approximately within the proposed stormwater basin. And we have all the other bells and whistles, perimeter erosion control, silt fence. We have material stockpiles with double rings of silt fence. We have inlet protection at all the inlets. We have rock construction entrances. We have proposed concrete washout areas. So this site has a robust erosion control plan associated with it as well. As part of the application, I just need to find it here, we provided a memo prepared by Mr. Richard Sinarski related to the site. This is a site that he is very familiar with and has been to a number of times. And the site has, he references the soil types, the poorly drained soils, which causes the wetlands to form. And in the springtime, he also went out and did the vernal pool inspections as required and did not find any evidence of that as well. His analysis of these wetlands, it's a moderate wildlife habitat and does potentially provide breeding habitat for the peepers and the toad. He references the water quality components of the stormwater design and the distance away that the discharges are from the design, and the fact that the proposed activity, the closest activity, is 70 feet from the wetlands. And in his professional opinion, that due to the stormwater management features, erosion control, and proximity to the wetlands, that this proposed development does not have a negative impact to the wetlands itself. I feel like I ran through that somewhat quickly and stream of consciously, so I would expect that there are some questions or comments, or with this being the acceptance hearing, maybe you've heard everything that you want to hear from me. So at this point, Mr. Chairperson, I would love to entertain questions, or if you'd like me to go over something different, or whatever the case may be. Thank you very much for the overview.
Commissioner Basserman, I think that was fine as a application receipt run through. I guess I had one question. The portion that you mentioned at the site that drains to Route 1. There is, I assume at this point, stormwater management along Route 1 at this location?
Yes, sir.
And you
There's an
tie into,
existing,
yeah, okay, you tie into that there. Thank you.
Yep.
And do we know what the date of that GPS data that you use to identify the wetland delineation?
December 13th, 2021.
Okay, great. Any other questions from the commission at this point? Look forward to,
So couple quick things. Did you mean the GIS data for the on-site wetlands or the wetlands across the street?
the onsite, I guess.
Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure. And then the other question is, does the commission think a site walk is appropriate for this or not necessary?
I guess, given the fact that we have, wetlands in the proximity, and we can, and the robust stormwater management system, I think it would be not only good for this particular application, but it probably would be a good, if you will, educational piece for the commission to observe how, what the applicant has called a robust stormwater management treatment. So yeah, I think a site walk would be prudent here. Anybody disagree? That I'm just one man opinion here. Okay.
Cool.
Can we want to establish a date now, or is it likely that we have other site walks that might need to be scheduled as well?
I think that you should go ahead and set a date now, and if it needs to be changed, it can be changed. There's only one other, well, there's a couple other applications for receipt. I'd say go ahead and schedule it now.
Okay.
The next meeting is September 8th. So I don't know, sometimes you look at the Thursday before, which would be September 1st, or the Wednesday before, which is September 7th, or any time in between. That's pretty much standard for what the commission looks.
Jamie, September 1st is the first day back to school for the Branford kids. So I don't know how many commissioners are tied up in the back to school chaos, but that's something to consider.
Thank you for the reality check. Yeah, so maybe the 7th, the day before.
Yeah, that works.
7 works.
And I guess for sake of argument, 5 o'clock. And we can alter that if at the end of the receipts, applications for receipt, if this is the only site walk, we might want to do that a little later, but let's target 5 o'clock at this point.
Does that time work for the applicant team?
Yes, as far as I know, yes.
Yeah, we can make it work. That's actually the first day of school for one of my children that I'm driving up to school. So I don't know if I will be able to make it, but Jeff Dewey is the design engineer on the project. He's got tons of experience, and Mr. Snarsky said he would make himself available for any site walks as well. So just because I am otherwise occupied, definitely still makes sense to schedule the site walk, but it works for you guys.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gagnon.
And then I think I just have one last quick question for the applicant team. It's my understanding that there's no direct wetland impacts, either permanent or temporary, as part of this application. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. because the application fee that was submitted included fees that pertain to direct wetland impact. So I'll follow up with you to just make sure we have that documentation, and I think we owe you a refund for that section, but we can talk more about that.
We'll be
in the
happy
office.
to receive a refund.
Alrighty.
Next up, inland wetland 220705, 175 Cherry Hill Road. 11 lot subdivision, houses, driveway, stormwater management, and a roadway. This was recently received, not actionable this evening, but this would be a good opportunity for the applicant to give us a brief overview of this 11 lot subdivision.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Christopher Giuliano. I'm a licensed land surveyor and professional engineer with the firm of Giuliano Associates. I maintain an office at 405 Main Street in Yalesville. Last fall, this property came before you for a similar 11 lot subdivision, which involved cul-de-sac road off of Autumn Ridge. The commission graciously gave us an approval. However, when we got to planning and zoning, we hit a roadblock, and basically planning and zoning was requiring us to redesign the entire project because they wanted a through road from Autumn Ridge down into Cherry Hill. So now we're back before this commission seeking a new approval on a new subdivision. If I can share a screen, I can kind of walk you through to refamiliarize yourself very quickly with the property and then show you what the new subdivision layout is going to be. I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. Let's see. Share screen. Okay. Share. All right. Hopefully you can all see the survey now. So just to orient everyone, we have Autumn Ridge here along the right side of the map and Cherry Hill Road up here at the top. So we have access through a 50-foot right of way off of Autumn Ridge. And basically the property slopes from Autumn Ridge down towards Cherry Hill and property owned by the RWA to the west. There are no wetlands on the property. However, there are 3 wetland ponds or ponds associated with wetlands that are located to our east on adjacent properties. We have one here, and one here. So we are impacted by the 100-foot upland review area along our eastern boundary. So jump down. So basically now we have to come through with a through road from Autumn Ridge down to Cherry Hill Road. And again, we have 11 lots similar to what we had last time. So really the only 2 major differences from what you saw last time was we had a cul-de-sac that probably ended in this area before. We had a detention basin here along the southwest. And originally we had a detention basin up here in the northwest in the open space. With this design, we're actually able to remove that second detention basin. So now the only basin will be located down near our connection to Cherry Hill Road. With respect to wetlands impacts, and I'm just going to go down to the second sheet, I've redesigned the subdivision so that all our grading is outside the 100-foot upland review area along lots 8 through 12. Located here on the east. So again, no direct impact to the wetlands, no direct impact to the upland review area. We are collecting stormwater from roofs and either putting it into the detention basin or on-site galleys for 2 of the rear lots when we can't get it into the proposed municipal storm drainage system. All footing drains other than 2 lots will be discharging the grade to allow some infiltration. And pretty much other than that, the project is very similar to what was previously approved. Again, the main difference being is we had to design it with a through road to connect Autumn Ridge with Cherry Hill.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Where are the 2 lots that won't be tied in?
All right, the 2 lots, which are 2 rear lots, lot 2 and lot 5 here. Basically, we're going to take the stormwater runoff from the roofs and we're going to put it into galley systems, one for the front and one for the rear for each house, so that we'll infiltrate that stormwater directly into the ground. So there won't be any negative impact with that. The rest of the houses connect straight into the storm drainage system to the detention basin in the southwest. So again, I wanted to keep it brief because you had seen this before, and with it only being the receipt meeting, I will definitely go into a lot greater detail about some of the grading, drainage, utilities at our next meeting, unless there's a question that you'd like me to address at this time.
This is Commissioner Basserman. I do not have any. I guess it raises the question of, given the fact that this is kind of a redo, is there a need for a site walk?
I think that's up to the commission. I think a lot of the commissioners had a chance to go out there already. But if there's any commissioners that haven't and think it would be pertinent to their review of the application, then
Does any commissioner feel that they would benefit from a up close and personal look at this application in a site walk? I guess we could always, after we next meeting, hear some of the particulars, I guess reflect on that need again. But I'm not hearing any overwhelming need at this point.
I can also add the pictures from the last file into this file so that if anyone wasn't present the last time this was reviewed, they can take a look at those pictures. And I just want to point out the last application, the commission was determining whether it should be a subdivision with regulated activity or a subdivision without regulated activity. The decision last time was subdivision without regulated activity. That's the application that has been submitted for this subdivision as well. And so because all the activity is outside the 100-foot upland review area. I do want to point out one other thing. The soils report did indicate an off-site wetland within the Cherry Hill Road right-of-way to the west of the property. However, I believe it wasn't delineated because it was off-site, so they didn't need to. But I believe it's greater than 100 feet from any of the proposed activity as part of this subdivision.
Okay. Great. Any other comments from the commission? And I guess we'll see you, Mr. Giuliano, next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, everyone.
And I appreciate the brief overview. That was helpful.
You're welcome, sir. Take care. Have a good night, everyone.
Yep. Next up, Inland Wetland 220801, 290 Pine Orchard Road, modification of Inland Wetland 210102 with the application of artificial turf. Jamie, a little bit of help here.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So it came to my attention that artificial turf had been installed at the subject property. I brought it to the attention of the commission as a potential modification to a permit that was issued in 2021. Commission thought that it exceeded a modification and requested that a notice of violation be submitted to either have them remove the turf or submit an application for permission to request to keep the turf. So this application is a proposal showing the extent of the turf on site. And I believe that the applicant is present. And I can either screen share.
Can you hear me, Jamie?
Yes.
Hi, Andy Kowalenko from Encon Consultants. Sorry, I got stuck in traffic in Greenwich, so I'm in the car, but I'm here.
Okay. So I haven't had a whole lot of time to take a look at the materials that were submitted yet, but we do have a site plan. So even though you can't see it, I will pull it up so that way the commissioners can and take a look at whether or not the commission has any additional questions that maybe you're looking for responses to for the next meeting. And I apologize because my Adobe crashed earlier, so all my preloaded stuff is not preloaded. Can everyone see this?
It's pretty light. That's helpful. That's a little better.
Okay, so Pine Orchard Road, then you've got the driveway with the residence, the pool, which was part of the application that was approved with a retaining wall, proposed or installed drainage and planting area. And then there's a pond in the back of the property, which is delineated by these WF. Looks like, yeah, 1 through 10. So the pool's in a slightly different location, but basically what was approved. The retaining walls are a little bit different too, but they're in the same extent. I didn't see any issue with the way that it was installed, but I just wanted to point out it's a little bit different. As is, I believe, this access road. But the thing that came up and that this application is for is the synthetic turf around the pool. And the commission had some questions regarding specifically how that would impact the wetland and stormwater quality regarding discharge to the wetlands. So, sorry.
This is Commissioner Badger. I guess we have this also listed under enforcement. Are we essentially going to be dealing with both items in this discussion, or is this to be bifurcated?
I think essentially the notice of violation at this point is kind of tabled because the notice of violation said to submit an application or remove the turf. So at this point, they've submitted the application, they've complied with that, and it's a matter of the commission reviewing the application and making a decision on the application. So I would say, once we get to the notice of violation, it would just be tabled until the decision's made on this permit
Okay.
application.
Thank you.
So in this letter, they kind of broke up some of the points that were in the notice of violation and provided responses. So show extent of turf on site plan, they did that. Address any changes to stormwater quality. How will the change in surface impact water runoff volume and quality? Response, water runoff volume, original calculation for runoff volume was based on impervious area. And they're showing that the impervious area is less than what was originally proposed. I don't know if the commission wants me to read this, but this is in the Dropbox, and I believe that all the commissioners received a copy. So this is kind of the response that the commission has received to some of the questions that were captured in the notice of violation that was sent to the owner. I don't know if the commissioners had a chance to look at any of the materials yet. If there's any additional information, we do have now a response to what is underneath the turf. So we do have a little bit more information than what I had available at the previous meeting where the commission discussed this.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I guess I have a question on the reduction in the impervious surface. Was the area where the pool is installed expanded? Was the pool put in smaller than originally thought? How do we achieve?
So the change was, there was originally I believe a stone paver patio around the pool, and instead of doing that, they put in the turf. And the turf is not impervious because it's got a drainage layer underneath it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Understand. I guess, and this is Commissioner Bassman, the additional question is, how long has this particular product with this particular design been used in applications?
Hi, this is Andy from MenCon. I'm not sure, but I can certainly find out. I know it's a matter of years, but I'm not exactly sure this particular product, how long this particular product's been used. I know that one of the big issues generally with synthetic turf is the crumb rubber, they call it.
Yep.
And this one does not use that. It uses sand. So that's sort of a good thing. But I can get a little more. I'm really kind of pressuring the supplier and the manufacturer for more data. So hopefully I'll have more before the next meeting.
And I guess if we're getting that, the chemical content of the material that's being used would be helpful, I think, as well.
That I did provide in my letter in the response. So I did provide that.
I see it says, polypropylene and polyurethane, et cetera. Are those the only components in that synthetic plastic?
I can't answer that either.
Right.
But I will work hard to, I asked for an MSDS data sheet on it. I didn't get it. I'll work hard to get the chemical composition of the product and have it for the next meeting.
Yeah, the manufacturer should know that it's probably critical for the commission to make sure that there isn't anything in that particular product that we would find harmful. So it would be in their best interest to provide as much information as possible.
I completely agree. And Jamie, would it be possible for you to send me an email that I could forward to them with that sort of request?
Yeah, I can do that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Bassman and Jamie, you mentioned that the wall was essentially the same, a little bit different. What was different, the material itself or the location or both, or?
The extent of it, I would say. So I think originally it was one straight retaining wall along this edge of where the stormwater is. And they connected it. So it's not any closer to the pond. I don't think it has any change in impact to the pond. I just kind of wanted to identify it in case any of the commissioners had any concerns or wanted additional information. So that way we can try and resolve everything with this current application. The other thing I wanted to
Go ahead.
I just also wanted to mention, I was on vacation and I believe Katie was at lunch when the application was submitted. We do not currently have the application fee, which based on the area of disturbance on the application form should be $460. I informed the applicant, I believe yesterday, so I told them that it should be submitted prior to the September meeting because trying to get it submitted for today just wouldn't have been reasonable at that point.
This is Andy. I did get that email and I'll get that taken care of.
Okay.
Commissioner Bassman, I guess, do we understand how rainwater will infiltrate the ground beneath the turf?
Is that a question for Andy or Jamie?
Either one that's got the answer.
It's Andy. The retention trench that was installed is downslope from the area of turf. So the water should permeate through, the rainwater should permeate through the turf and enter the subgrade, and any residual water that's of significant volume that would pass through the subgrade would end up in the retention trench. So nothing should get into the pond, and it's doubtful that anything will even make it to the retention trench.
Okay. And I think when I read the material that was in the Dropbox, there's crushed stone beneath the turf.
Yes. Well, it's not crushed stone. No, it's it's gravel with a lot of fines, like 3/8 minus, I think.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost like a septic sand.
Fine, yes. So it performing in somewhat the way like a sand filter does for a pool.
Yep, that's correct.
All right, so to summarize it, the commission is looking for whatever additional information the applicant can get on the product itself, including how long the product has been on the market / used in the field, and what the chemical makeup of it is, and any information regarding water runoff that runs through or over the product. Would that be a fair summary?
It is, Commissioner Basserman, it is for me. Any other comments from the commission before we move on? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your participation this evening, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, next up, DRJW 220801 4581 Short Rocks Road, the Branford Supply Ponds. We have a replacement of a pole bridge over Pine Gutter Brook. I think we've seen this once before, maybe twice before.
I think that at this point, there's only 2 of you that have.
Oh. it's
and only one that's present.
Yeah.
But yes, since we do have commissioners on the board that have seen this before, the last time it was before the commission, I was not in this department, so I did not see it. However, my understanding is the commission was looking at not only the replacement of the bridge, but an attempt to try and armor the footing of the bridge and or the bank of the water course. And there was some concern regarding how that would ultimately end up functioning. So at this point, the application before the commission is simply to replace the bridge. And with that, I'll let Richard Shanahan give a little brief presentation. Richard, if you want me to screen share anything, or if you want to screen share, just let me know.
Okay. Basically, I think it's pretty straightforward. Richard Shanahan, I'm the chair of Parks and Open Space Commission. I guess this project has been around for a while. Again, I'm new to it as well. I guess the original proposal was to place some cement structure in the middle, or on the edges of the brook to prevent further erosion. There were several questions that would require an engineering study and what have you. Having limited funds and limited time, that's where the project has sat. I came along and I'm saying, let's just replace the pole bridge. The current bridge is 26 feet. We're proposing a new bridge at 35 feet in span. So we're not going to be touching or changing anything on the embankments or what have you. We're not going to be touching the river whatsoever, or the brook whatsoever. So I don't know, Jamie, what you have sent to people or what they have. I don't know if in terms of the narrative or the map or, yeah. Okay. So this is in the middle of the supply ponds. The access that we're going to be using is off the Green Trail, which basically originates just off the meadow at the supply ponds. And then Pine Gutter Brook is at the far side of this, on the north side. I guess this is also the route where when the sedimentation pond has to be dredged, which is also planned for, this is the exact same route that they use for that.
Mr. Shanahan, do you have a picture of the material that you want to use for the bridge?
Yeah. Okay, Jamie, thank you. Yeah, this is just some photographs of the existing bridge. As you can see, it's pretty dilapidated. It's been condemned for several years and not used. Also, I have a couple of photos of the erosion that's taking place underneath And that was what the previous application was trying to address, but it just became too complicated. As you can see, the photograph with the two folks above it, all of that sediment is from Storm Ida last August. There's a continuing problem with severe erosion on Pine Gutter Brook. I've been talking to Jamie about how do we deal with that, and that's a separate project that we're going to try to deal with. In the meantime, what's been happening with this erosion problem, Jamie, you can go to the next. Oh, okay, this is an existing bridge, alternative bridge that we've been using downstream. As you can see, though, it's elevated with several steps. And we've been getting some negative comments, complaints from people that it's difficult for them to make this crossing. It also is not very effective for handicapped or what have you, as well as mountain bikers. The older bridge was level, ground level, so it just was a very straight, even passage. So this alternative is not the best. And what's been happening since then is that the mountain bikers, and Jamie, I don't know where that, if you can show pictures of the stream bed.
I don't know that you submitted any, but let me take a quick look. I think I added photos from when we were out there a year or so ago. And I think this is a picture of one of the areas where it's
Okay.
being crossed.
Yeah, this is the stream bed, but this was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And this is what the mountain bikers have been using. Well, with Hurricane Ida, and I thought I submitted it, and I apologize if it's been misplaced. Hurricane Ida upstream, there was major erosions going on, and somehow, somewhere, it hit an old farmer's junk pile. So as a result, all the old trash and what have you washed downstream. This entire area right now is contaminated with fairly large, prominent shards of glass and china. It really is a dangerous situation for people walking by with dogs and what have you. I'm surprised that we haven't had an issue yet. But this is also what prompted us to, okay, we have to do something here. We got to replace this bridge and put it back at ground level to allow for mountain bikers and pedestrians and what have you to cross in a safe manner.
And the new bridge is going to be made of?
It's basically a pole bridge. These are just examples. This is a bridge that the DEP put in on one of their properties. Instead of 2 telephone poles, we're using 4. There's also we got a letter from John Hefferly from engineering say, if anything else, it was overbuilt. But we really want to do that. That's where we have 35 feet on both sides. So until we can contain or deal with the erosion problem, that buys us many years of time before it's going to be another issue. Yeah, so yeah, I thought I had submitted.
In the preliminary documents you sent over, you did have some additional information. So I'll add the preliminary documents minus the application form pages to the file so that way the commissioners can look at it prior to the next meeting.
Okay, or I can get it to you. Again, I apologize. I thought it was just this packet.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, does this require a full commission approval or?
I think it does because it spans the water course.
Okay, yep. Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Looks like a worthwhile project, Mr. Shanahan.
I hope so.
We see you next
week. Overdue. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, see you next week or next month.
Yeah, I may not be here, but I'll have probably John Tolbert sit in for me.
Okay. Last last in the applications for receipt this evening. Another BR, I think, no, this is JRJ, 220801.
Jurisdictional ruling.
What's that?
Jurisdictional ruling.
Okay, jurisdictional ruling, 26 Evergreen Place. Removal of the invasives and down trees and the planting of new native plants.
All right, before we dive into it, is there anyone from the public here for this item? If you are here, you should be able to unmute yourself and let us know. Peter, if there's no one here, do you want to table this item to later in the agenda?
Yes, certainly. That's a good idea. Yep. Going once, going twice here. All right, let's move this later on and get to items where you have members sitting on the call. Okay, application for review, Inland Wetland 220701, 45 Rose Hill Road, clearing for vehicle storage. Do we have, we do have Mr. Pretty.
Yep. And just as a quick recap, the commission did have a site walk and did view the site. There were some minor site plan changes made in response to that site walk.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Jim Purdy, Criscolo Engineering. Just trying to get to the two drawings. Hold on. Okay. So can I share? Okay. So I'm going to share the screen. This is the plan that was submitted, and we went over the last meeting and that we had with us on the sidewalk. Given what we saw during the sidewalk and the proximity of the edge of the slope here, I've taken out this last row of cars and moved the trench in. So now it looks like this. This is the edge of the existing tree line now. So it'd just be a little bit of a trim in here, and between the new trench, the infiltration trench, and the edge of the tree line, basically the edge of the slope, we would have them take out some of that crushed stone and put in topsoil and then seed it with the conservation mix and kind of let that grow back in to protect that edge and keep the activity away from it. Again, that was based on, our walk and what we actually saw out there. So that's the only change from the last meeting.
And the at the widest point, is this Commissioner Bassman, at the widest point, Mr. Pretty, what is the distance between that last row and?
What we did is, so what we basically took off is 18 feet. So it's now 18 feet farther than, it was pretty much right at the edge before. Now it's,
okay.
The first car is about 20 feet because it's on the other side of that trench.
Gotcha.
And we do have a fence around there too, so that, the natural creep can't happen in that area.
Is there, Commissioner Bassman, are the cars sitting on asphalt or will be sitting on asphalt or crushed stone?
It'll be processed stone. Yeah, it'll be
processed. Okay.
Yep.
And is there any barrier that prevents that last row of vehicles from moving on to the grassed area?
Well, like I said, we have that stone trench for the infiltration, and then around that, we're proposing a fence to be installed around this, basically around this side here, around the back, and then along this side over here, where we're leaving that other vegetated area alone.
And you said that there would be a fence?
Yes, that's part of the.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commission questions at this point? This is actionable this evening, Jamie?
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I do have a couple of comments. I'm looking at the staff report that I submitted to the file. And it
Mhm.
looks like the latest save didn't save. So I just have a couple of comments. I'm not sure how much the commission's concerned about them. One thought I had was regarding it's not extremely clear from the site plan where the top of the slope is. Because the topo, I believe, is maybe I don't know what the source is off the top of my head for the topo. So I was gonna say that the limits of disturbance and erosion controls may be slightly field modified based on marking them out at the pre-construction meeting. I don't know if that's something the commission feels would be necessary to specify as a permit condition. And then the other thing I was going to say, which might be in the details of the site plan, is that any changes to the conservation seed mix shall be approved by the inland wetland agent. I'm not sure why those aren't in the document. And
Yeah, I
then the
didn't see-
other, sorry.
Sorry, Jim Purdy. I didn't see those in there, but that's, the intention was to keep the silt fence up at the top of the slope anyway.
Yeah.
And you know, the conservation mix, we always recommend that they get it from the same place. So those are the extra comments are fine.
I figured that's what the intent was, and I thought the condition might help just, you know, clarify that. I'm not sure why, I guess I didn't hit save properly or something, because my copy doesn't say it either.
This is Commissioner Basserman, and those would be comments and nomenclature that we would normally provide in a permit, would it not?
Yeah, so in the staff report where I draft possible conditions that the commission may consider as part of their decision whether to approve an application or not. I had put some language addressing those 2 points in the staff report, but it, for some reason, is not in there, so that's why I mentioned it verbally now. The other thing I want to mention is that there was a fee reduction request submitted. Originally, $660 was submitted for the application fee that was based off of the total area of disturbance in the 100-foot upland review area. They have since submitted the remainder of the fee since the decision was not made at the last meeting to ensure that their application would be considered complete for this meeting. But the request still remains on the record, so the commission should decide whether or not to grant that fee reduction.
Has it's Commissioner Basserman, has the area of disturbance changed?
I will say, Mr. Chairman, that we aren't disturbing anything new from what was there before or historically been disturbed. And in fact, we're reverting some of it back to vegetated state. And, you know, the wetland was off the property. And I know it's still within 100 feet, but it just seemed that the rate that we had used for the 660 made the most sense. But if the commission feels otherwise, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, so the rationale provided initially was basically was just stated that the wetland is off-site and that the area of disturbance is an area that's already been disturbed. And then with the modification to the site plan, they're now actually vegetating some of that upland review area. So the fee that they're asking for is $660, and the fee that has now been received is $2,060. And the commission can grant a fee reduction either because the amount is clearly in excess of the amount for the review of the application, or the application has a benefit to essentially the environment or public safety and public health.
Just one commissioner's comment, is Commissioner Basser, but I guess I do think that the restoration of an area to a more natural habitat should be somehow rewarded. I guess I'm not sure 2,000 to 660, but certainly there ought to be a recognition of that as an incentive, not only for this particular application, but for any application that comes in that looks to help the environment. Where's everybody else on this?
Commissioner Papantonis, I agree with that.
Commissioner Steinberg, I agree as well. Makes sense.
Jamie, do we have any guidance, Commissioner Fernaro?
I agree, yeah, that seems like a,
Okay, thank you. Do we have any guidance from other applications where reduction has been granted, Jamie, to isolate a number here?
So that's tough to say. So the commission has granted reductions in fees for projects that are essentially purely restoration. This isn't,
Right.
I would say it doesn't fall into that category, but it does provide a little bit of that. So I don't have any recommendations for, an amount that it should be reduced if that's the direction the commission's going in. I do think it's important to kind of that you've identified that as being the reason.
Would anybody be opposed if we were to establish the fee at $1,000?
Sounds like a fair number.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's fair. I don't have any frame of reference either, because all these years we've been doing this, I don't think I've ever asked either. So it just seemed excessive for what is actually happening here on the site.
Anybody disagree with the $1,000?
I think that the commission should have a motion made.
Yeah. I'll make the motion that for 220701, that the fee for the application be modified at $1,000, recognizing the work that's to be done to move an area on the site for natural habitat, and on that reason we moved to $1,000 for the fee.
Commissioner Steinberg, I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion or modification?
I'll just also mention that they are adding stormwater quality improvements to the site as well.
So noted. We'll take, I guess, a roll call vote. Commissioner Steinberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Meinson,
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis,
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Fernaro,
Commissioner Fennaro, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, inland wetland.
Oh, wait. Sorry, you
Whoa.
decided to reduce the fee, but you haven't decided on the application.
No, separate vote. Separate vote.
Can I just jump in for a second? I just want to make sure that for clarification on the fee, with every application, there is a $60 fee that goes to the state. Do you want the fee to be $1,000 to us or $1,000 minus the 60?
Well, the 660 included the $60, right?
Correct.
Okay. So it looks like it's $1,000 plus 60.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
So are we talking about $1,000 and $1,060 total?
Correct. Do we need a new motion?
I think that the applicants, I think as long as there's a general consensus among everyone that's
You
happy.
don't for me.
All right.
Okay.
So there is a staff report with some conditions of approval. If you want, I can pull that up. And if you want, I can touch base on any of the comments I said earlier, if there were any that you wanted to try and incorporate.
Why don't we do that?
All right, so our standard inspections, pre-construction meeting prior to land clearing, limits to be marked out by the surveyor. Initial erosion control inspection prior to disturbance, again, location to be marked by surveyor. Stormwater drainage inspection and final inspection. So the other things that I had mentioned previously are number 2, which is blank, would be that any changes to the conservation seed mix shall be approved by the inland wetland agent. And then under pre-construction meeting that something along the lines of limits may be modified in the field to keep activity at top of slope to prevent destabilization of slope or something like that. These are, again, just possible conditions for the commission to consider. The commission can add other conditions. They can decide they need more info. And then, of course, the standard conditions and general provisions of all permits.
Is there a date for that, Jamie?
This document is staff report prepared for IW meeting 8/11/2022.
I'll make a motion that the application for inland wetland 220701 45 Rose Hill Road be approved, incorporating the staff report of 8/11/2022 with the address 45 Rose Hill Road, to include the conditions listed on that staff report, with the addition of a provision under section, where am I looking there? Section possible conditions for, pardon me, for consideration conditions, adding under item 2 that the seed mix used would be approved by the staff of the Inland Wetland Commission, and that the control, was it erosion controls? Erosion controls be put at the top of the slope to avoid any future degradation of the area. That's it.
Commissioner Finaro, I'd like to second that.
Any other amendments to the conditions? Okay, we're going to go around and take a roll call. Is that sufficient, Jamie, for the inclusion of those 2 items that you were concerned about?
Yeah, I believe that addresses it.
Okay. Let's take a roll call vote. Commissioner Meinson,
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Finaro,
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Papatonis,
Commissioner Papatonis, aye.
Commissioner Steinberg,
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye.
Thank you, folks.
Yep. Okay. Inland Wetland 220702, 9 Beechwood Road. We have a fill deposited in the upper review area, and I guess some regrading. Jamie?
I believe that the applicant team is present. This is actionable if the commission determines they have enough information. I did have one question for the applicant regarding the construction procedure, specifically number 6. I know that I had reviewed the plans briefly preliminarily before the application was submitted. And I just was wondering if step 6 still applied and or if it should be modified based on the soil scientist comments regarding the use of erosion control blanket. Other than that, I think we want to hand it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Jamie. Mark Young with Waldo Associates. To address that comment regarding the wood chips, when I first was at the site, there was a lot of wood chips on that slope. So I thought, they would be useful to stabilize the slope and provide some erosion control. Certainly in the 3 or 4 years since then, they have decomposed somewhat. it was kind of difficult to tell, what condition they're in due to the, all the weeds growing on the slope. But I think, we're going to have to evaluate it once the machine is out there. We would be, removing any large, chunks of solid material, concrete or asphalt, as you recommended. We would remove any, large, logs or wood or stumps that are in there. Again, it's tough to tell what's there until we get started. So, once we get the slope evened out and we remove all the stuff we don't want there, then we kind of have to see what's there. If there's enough of the wood chips to utilize, we'll spread them out. It may be that by the time we get done regrading, the wood chips are going to be all mixed in anyways. And I suspect that's going to be, most of the case. So, perhaps that that comment may be somewhat moot. Once we pull the slope back and take any unsuitable material out of there, we'll probably be fairly close to our final grade. Again, we're going to have to rely on the backhoe operator to a certain extent. Sure, of course, we'll meet with him on the site and go over what we want to happen. And I think we'll select a good operator who can do all the grading that we think is appropriate on this site.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, is this something that you have pictures of at this point, or is this something that a site walk needs to be done
the commission did a site walk. The last site walk the commission did, this was the last stop. So I'll share the site plan real quick to refresh the commission's memory. It's a single family house. Back in 2016, 2017, there was a bunch of material brought on site. It exceeds planning and zoning's allowed 3-to-1. So the project is to pull back the slope so that it no longer exceeds 3-to-1. The base of the slope will remain the same. And they're proposing, I believe it's 15 shrubs on the slope, and to seed the slope area with a lawn mix. So my main concern is making sure that the vegetation establishes to make sure the slope is stable long-term. So certainly the wood chips could be used around the plantings. But I would want to make sure that the wood chips aren't getting in the way of establishing that lawn environment in between the plantings on the slope to make sure that there's a stable long-term product. So I'm looking at the construction procedure over here. Notify the inland wetland office, install silt fence, clear and grub as necessary, including invasive species, remove decomposed wood chips from northerly slope and stockpile, regrade slope as necessary. Then the one I was questioning is 6, spread decomposed wood chips uniformly over disturbed slope areas. 7 is seed regraded slope with a lawn seed mix and apply erosion control fabrics, such as C125 on regraded slope. Loam and seed remaining area, plant trees and shrubs, remove silt fence when area stabilized. So as long as those wood chips aren't getting in the way of establishing the seed mix that's being spread, I think it's fine. So I think that might be something that can kind of be worked out
between staff
in the
and
process, as they see what the actual conditions are on site.
Right.
But I just wanted to make sure that somebody didn't receive this paperwork and then follow it to the T and then seed on top of wood chips and end up with something that's not going to possibly have the intended effect.
Mark Young again. I agree. Well, I want to keep a close watch on how it proceeds. I'll probably stop by every day when the work is done, though I don't expect it to take more than a couple of days. My main concern with all those wood chips was that if they're deep, nothing's going to grow there. So that's one of the reasons for spreading it out. And with the regrading, removing unsuitable material, I think a lot of it will get kind of mixed in, and we'll certainly make the operator aware of what we want to see. So the decomposed wood chips, I mean, since they are decomposing now, I think it probably will not necessarily be a detrimental addition to the existing soil. I think a lot of the fill material there is probably just subsoil, not particularly fertile. But the decomposed wood chips will add organic matter, which will improve the moisture retaining capacity of the soil. But that said, we don't want there to be too much wood chips, because it would get droughty, and there wouldn't be a lot of nutrients in it. So I think we'll have to evaluate the project as we go along, and try to mix the wood chips in with the existing soil, so we have a suitable growing medium. And then,
Mr. Basserman, Mr. Young, if I remember correctly, this was a pretty steep slope.
Yes.
Do you work from the top down, or how does that happen to get the grade that you need?
That was our intention, is to work from the top down. So we have, we proposed the silt fence, the erosion control, right on the base of the slope to minimize the intrusion into the review zone. And that way, I think, with a long reach backhoe, we can do everything from the top. And so we don't have to get a machine down at the bottom.
You're not on the slope, basically.
Right. The machine will be up on top. He's going to be pulling everything up towards the top, and pick out whatever big chunks of stuff he has. And, he can, a decent operator should be able to grade it pretty well from the top. And, and once he's done, he can, swing the boom, and, pack it down, and should be able to do a pretty decent job. I mean, I've seen guys I know who could do it. So I think that's the best way to, to provide, long-term stability and compliance with the regulations.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the commission? Anything more from staff?
I do have a staff report for this project as well, if the commission would like for me to screen share that.
Please.
I think we hit my other points. So possible conditions for consideration that I had thought of prior to the meeting. Again, pre-construction meeting, initial erosion control inspection, pre-planting meeting, planting inspection upon completion of planting. And then I added annually for 3 years to ensure maintenance and survival of plantings. I don't believe that was in the application. It's up to the commission if they think that that would be appropriate for this application. And final inspection, which is generally upon stabilization of the site. Additional conditions, any exposed concrete or asphalt within fill materials shall be removed from site and properly disposed of. Step 6 of construction procedure shall be clarified to the satisfaction of the inland wetland agent. The erosion control blanket shall be biodegradable. It's a pretty standard condition the commission likes to add. And any additional activity not shown on the site plan must be reviewed by the agency to determine whether an inland wetlands and watercourses permit is required. And I threw that on there because there was a comment about clearing, I believe, the area south of the fill, which very likely could be something that doesn't require a permit, but I didn't want it to get misconstrued down the line, so I just threw that in there. Be safe.
Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, is there any likelihood that we're going to take fill off-site, or we fill that's not going to be used, and are we going to cart that off-site, or is all the fill, but basically all the regrading, going to be used on site?
I would let the applicant respond to that. I think they touched on it last time a little bit. And certainly any unsuitable materials we touched on should be removed from site. I don't know if they think that there's additional material that would need to be removed or if they're able to work with the existing area to accommodate most of the rest of the fill.
Yeah, I was just concerned about, if we have additional fill that we're not going to use and it doesn't have concrete or asphalt in it, what happens to that?
It would either have to be removed or it would have to be removed because.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that. That's my only point.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the area of activity is shown on the site plan, so they should not exceed that area. So they would either have to come back to the commission and ask for a revised approval or remove it, but let's see what the applicant has to say.
Okay.
Mark Young, Waldo Associates. Yeah, we don't expect there will be a lot of excess material. I think most of it, of course, any unsuitable material, as recommended, concrete, asphalt, would be trucked off site. Any large boulders, we'd like to retain and just kind of line them up along the top of the slope. It's kind of a sort of a protection. If there's some dirt that we have to, some excess dirt, that would just be spread out on the level area uphill from the from the slope, and that's pretty much outside the review zone. The ultimate intent would they intend to loam and seed that area to provide some additional lawn space. One other point. When I was speaking with the manager, it's not on here. It's well outside the review zone, but there is a septic tank behind the house, which is directly behind the deck. I believe they intend to replace that, but as far as they know, the leaching field is intact. So again, it's well outside the review zone, so we didn't think that was particularly relevant to this project. But just so you know,
Okay.
that will probably be done, and I would expect that some of that area behind the deck would also be cleared and loamed and seeded to provide an attractive back lawn area.
Thank you for that. Somebody want to make a motion regarding 220702?
We can make the motion to accept this, and then wetland number 22.07.02, 9 Beechwood Road. Removal fill deposited in upland review area and grading with the stipulations outlined by the staff.
You want to reference the staff report?
With the information outlined in the staff report. You need to read it?
No, but maybe give us a date for the staff report as well.
The staff report is dated 8/11/2022.
Okay, so that's a motion. Do we have a second?
It's Commissioner Steinberg. I'll second that motion.
Any additions or modifications to the staff report of August 11th, 2022? Okay, let's take a roll call vote. Commissioner Steinberg,
It's Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Panaro,
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis,
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Meinson,
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Okay. Good luck.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
We now have a couple enforcement actions, and we have a notice of violation, 56 Rose Hill Road, and 67 Pent Road, the stockpiling and excavating activity on those sites. I think we also were the site walk on these properties. So we saw the activity that happened. Anything new to report on this, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. So yes, the commission did do a site walk. It was the second stop on the site visit, I believe on August 2nd. And the commission viewed areas where pictures were received of activities that happened on site, viewed the wetland and watercourse area, viewed where the manure was being stockpiled, viewed where a section of the watercourse, which also functions as a drainage ditch, had been excavated probably about a year or two ago to remove accumulated sediment. And they also viewed the storage, the office building / mobile home structure that is located adjacent to the watercourse on the east side of the watercourse. So there was an issue with so the notice of violation addressed stockpiling and excavation activities that the department received photo evidence of. The stockpiles have been addressed per the direction of myself. So unless the commission has any additional concerns regarding any stockpiling that they saw on site, I think that part has been addressed. Regarding the excavation activity, there was concern that there are drainage modifications, including the installation of a pipe that discharged directly to the wetland / watercourse, which runs under Pent Road. And there was I did not see any evidence of a pipe. I did not see an outlet of a pipe. And I didn't see where the pipe would have been connected up top. So I'm not sure if the commissioners saw anything that they found concerning or alarming regarding the excavation activity. The resident submitted documentation that activity was primarily, it's due to the accumulation of hay and manure adjacent to the hay trough that they have at the base of their driveway that comes down from Rose Hill Road. And I think their problems are are worse in the spring because they probably have more accumulation in the winter when things are different temperatures. And then they also have all the spring rain and they have that long paved driveway. So I think that there's room for them to come up with a better practice there. And I've already talked with them about, minimizing the amount of disturbance, only taking the surface, manure and hay layer and trying not to dig down deeper than that. And perhaps there's an opportunity for them to improve the drainage from the roadway that would help reduce the impacts of that material getting turned in more with the soil layer there. So I guess the question for the commission is there any outstanding issues on site that you feel need further action? The manure pile was relocated greater than 100 feet from the wetland. It has silt fence and hay bales around it. The milling pile has been moved. There's still a pile of stone, but it's clean stone. It's not impacting anything. It's in an area that was approved for fill back in the 90s. And so the question is there any outstanding violations on the property at this point? Or is there any additional follow-up the commission wants to have with the owner / resident regarding future activities such as maintenance of the water course, future mucking out of the area adjacent to the hay trough kind of thing?
This is Commissioner Basserman. I was on the site walk. I also did not see any excavation evidence associated with a installation of a new pipe. Clearly, I think the site walk was very helpful in knowing which areas we're going to be receiving manure and which areas we're not, especially those associated with the watercourse. I guess from my standpoint, they have fulfilled the requirements in terms of the notice of violation. And I did not see any new violations that were not accommodated in this NOV. That's my observation. Anybody else?
Commissioner Papantonis, I was on the site walk. I didn't see any evidence of pipe, and it looked like the requirements had been fulfilled, and I didn't see any new violations either.
This is Commissioner Canaro. I'm curious, is it common for a follow-up in a certain number of time, just, you know, certain like a year or so to see about the where it is, what stands?
Generally speaking, I would say on something like this, it's not common for follow-up, particularly in any routine period of time. If there's action greater than removal of a pile, so like if there's plantings, then yes, there would be a time frame for follow-up. But something like this, where really any change on site would really be kind of a new violation, there's no routine check back period.
Mr. Commissioner Basserman, Jamie, that paved driveway had a pretty good slope associated with it. Did you chat with the homeowner on how to mitigate the velocity of that water coming down that hill?
I've asked him a couple of times if he has any plans to try and address the runoff from that driveway. And he says not, he has informed me he doesn't currently, and I've suggested that it'd be a good thing to look into, and he has agreed with that, but I don't know that,
Yeah.
I don't know if he has the resources to. I have reached out to the local conservation district, and I hope to talk with them in the near future to see if, I know that there's some programs that work with farms specifically. And so I was gonna see if there might be any programs available to him that I could, you know, connect him with to try and help further encourage that, because I think it would be a good thing for him to do. But, you know, it's kind of a matter of trying to give him the tools, I
Right.
think.
Right.
And perhaps, you know, following up with a letter stating, you know, if the commission is deciding that the notice of violation is satisfied that that's the case, but to be cautious, and as we've mentioned, only scrape the surface layer, you know, for manure and hay, make sure you're not excavating into the soil layer. If you need to do that, contact the inland wetland agency prior to doing it to see if you need inland wetland agency approval,
Okay, thank you.
if that's what the commission feels is appropriate to do. That's my thoughts on that. And then the other thing that I think the commission should address is, it sounds like they've had a history of routinely maintaining that water course section between the driveway and Pent Road. So I don't know if the commission thinks that that's a grandfathered must make a determination whether or not that's a grandfathered activity. Or if that is also something that should come back to the commission for review prior to any further maintenance of that water course. And you can say that it has to come back for that jurisdiction and wait to make that determination at that time. You don't have to make it now, but I think you should let him know if he needs to come back.
This is Commissioner Papantonis. I have a question. Do we know how long this has been going on, if we're considering grandfathering something?
1 minute. So we did receive and perhaps the commission decides that there's not enough information and that a request isn't being officially made at this time, which I think is totally okay for the commission to do, and say that prior to any additional maintenance, a request has to be submitted. I'm just trying to, you know, make sure everyone knows what is resolved and what might need to come back for additional review. All right, so in response to the things the commission had discussed at the last meeting, the issues were mowing of wetland / water course. The fact that they have a hayfield that they cut, which overlaps with the wetland area. They mentioned the frequency of the cutting, manure in the water course. They addressed that, they've moved it, and they have indicated that they plan on keeping it in the new location. Spreading of manure in field adjacent to the wetland. They've indicated that they only spread it in the upper fields outside of the water course area. Only light amounts, yada, yada, yada. So again, the commission can kind of just say, if you want, I mean, I don't know how much because a lot of these are routine activities. So it could be that he has to come back for a jurisdictional ruling request for these farming things. But the other thing we were talking about is the runoff from the driveway. 1 minute, I think it's the last one. I want to jump over to what we were talking about. Excavation of water course. In this narrative, they're claiming that they've been doing it for over 60 years. And wetland regulation was implemented in 1974.
Right.
And they claim that they do it once every 2 to 3 years. So they did it, they think either 1 or 2 years ago. So it'd be 1 or 2 years that they would be coming back if you say that they have to do it prior to the next. They have to come back for an actual jurisdictional ruling request prior to any additional maintenance.
Well, Commissioner Bassman, the NOV regarding stockpiling and excavation activity, I think it sounds like everybody's kind of comfortable that the conditions outlined in the NOV have been met. This is a new item, maybe a preventative one, but it's beyond, in my mind, the scope of the existing NOV.
Yeah, I agree.
And the fact that they've been doing this for allegedly 60 years, et cetera, I'm not sure at this point that we need to burden these folks with a jurisdictional ruling before they can maintain the water course as they have been for 60 years.
Okay.
Obviously, if somebody points out that conditions within that water course have changed because of something that was done, that would indicate a new NOV.
Sure.
Okay. But we need to make a motion to remove the NOV if that's the feeling of the commission.
Yeah, and if there's any follow-up comments that the commission wants to share beyond the removal, or if you just want me to, send a cautionary comment regarding, any violations that occur from activities will be reviewed on their own merit. Any future activities, I don't know.
Yeah, and in my mind, I don't know, lift the NOV.
Might muddy the water more than anything.
Right, lift the NOV. You have a nice conversation with them about to me, the important thing is trying to do something about the water coming down that hill if they can. And I like your comment about trying to provide not the stick, but the carrot, maybe from another organization that might help them manage that water flow.
Okay.
So do we have a motion to lift the NOV?
This is Commissioner Steinberg. I'll make a motion to lift the NOV on 56 Rose Hill Road to 67 Pent Road.
And a second?
Commissioner Papantonis, second.
Any further discussion? All right, we're gonna vote. Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Steinberg,
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Meinson,
Commissioner Meinson, I.
Commissioner Papadonis,
Commissioner Papadonis, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Thank you. NOV 290 Pine Orchard Road, artificial turf, non-compliance with permit. It would look like, based on our conversation prior to, and the fact that we got some additional information requested, that the party for 290 Pine Orchard Road indicated to get back to us. Looks like we just continue this NOV.
Yeah,
Great.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. We'll still put it on the agenda next time in case the commission's ready to make a determination on the application, because then this might be actionable, but there's no point in discussing it right now.
Okay, cease and correct 220601 and a second NOV for 20 Huntington Drive, removal of trees and the placement of debris with a report and a restoration plan. What's new?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So an initial notice of violation was issued. I want to say it was either 2019 or 2020 due to some vegetation removal. Since then, additional vegetation removal occurred, which was the second notice of violation. The commission did not feel like they were getting a timely response with action on the ground or in the form of reports. So a cease and correct order was issued, giving them until this meeting to present their restoration plan and investigation from the soil scientist, going back out and redelineating the wetlands. That report was to be submitted last Thursday. We received it today, so that we do have documentation for the commission to review. However, staff has not had much time to take a look at it yet. So I believe the owner and their soil scientist office is present to present on the plan. If the commission wants me to hand it over, or if you want more of an update.
Just one question before we proceed. Are we stable on the site?
Honestly, I've not been by the site recently, but yes, I would say that it is stable because it was stable the last time I went by, and unless they've cut again, which I'm sure has not hopefully been the case, it should be fine. And I believe that Jen might be able to speak more to that because she's been out to the site more recently than I have been.
Great. Take it away, Jen.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I will briefly go through the report. I know you haven't seen it probably, but I just want to summarize it for you. Basically tells you what we found when we were out there. So Scott Stevens, who did the original delineation back in 2018, also inspected the site the same time I was out there on July 21st. So the purpose of the inspection was to go and to reflag the wetland boundary and then to observe the existing conditions of the wetlands and also the upland review area. So we observed, just real quick, the silt fence had been installed near the western property boundary. It was downslope of the recent filling. We observed that fill had been placed in the western portion of the site. The depth of fill is unknown. Approximately 75% of the slope, the fill slope, was covered with herbaceous vegetation, which provided stabilization. Dominant vegetation on that slope included mugwort, pokeweed, asters, some wood sorrel, garlic mustard, curly dock, and raspberry. We did note that there are several trees remaining on the western slope, so it is really unknown to us how many trees and or shrubs were removed from that area. Perhaps after I make the presentation, we can ask the landowner if you have specific questions regarding those details. So the upland review area adjacent to the wetland was also appeared to have been recently disturbed. And it looked like the understory had been cleared and some debris had been pushed into the wetland. However, there are still numerous trees in the area, providing a dense tree canopy cover, and there is herbaceous vegetation, which is fairly dense, and it's providing stabilization for the soils.
This is Commissioner Vassar. Can I interrupt for a second? Is there a way to put a site plan up on the screen so that we can identify when you talk about these locations on a site plan?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. I'll share the soils report sketch page. So just for orientation real quick, Huntington Drive is at the top of the page, the house, and then this is the western side of the site. And the along the property line, this is kind of the area I think that was initially being discussed. And then the wetland area on site is in this southwestern corner.
Yes.
And it's calling out large debris pile in this area and stump and tree in this area.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And it's all approximate. I think before then you can go, if you could scroll back, please, Jamie, and then you can see pictures of the existing conditions. So there's your silt fence, and then there's the slope that is stabilized with all the herbaceous vegetation in the western part of the site. And then the next page down, there, that's just looking more onto the slope towards the house. So you can see the vegetation that's on there, but it's mainly mugwort, which is invasive. Then the next picture is, oh, that is looking along the eastern side. So I'm standing at the southern boundary, looking at the eastern side of the wetland, which is that orange flag Jamie's pointing to right there. And then you can see part of the debris pile within the wetland, and those are branches, large logs. There's some boards in there. There's some wire fencing and some rope we observed in there. Let's see, do I have a picture of the stump in there? I think I do. Yeah, that's later on, page 6.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just looking from the slope down. Yeah, there's your stump and the tree that had been pushed into the wetland edge. So there's one flag, and then you can see the other flag up above the tree. Like, yeah, you got it, Jamie.
Wow, good eyes.
Yeah, really good, especially now,
Wow.
like 9 o'clock at night.
I wouldn't
I'm
have seen
impressed.
that. I wouldn't have seen it.
It was hard to get that in the picture, I have to say. So if you could scroll back a couple pictures, please. That one below the sketch map. Yep, that one. So that I'm standing on that western slope, the fill slope, looking down at the wetland, and then you can see the neighbor's pond off site to the right in the picture. So let me just back up a little bit, and we'll go over Scott Stevens reflagged the wetland boundary during that inspection. He determined that there's really only minimal filling along the wetland boundary, and the more important aspect to this is the debris, including tree stumps, branches, wooden boards, fencing, and rope had been pushed into the wetland area. When we were out there, we did not observe any significant erosion or sedimentation issues on the site. Everything is pretty well stabilized. So I think now we can jump to page 6, which just includes our recommendations for mitigation of these activities. So first off, we recommend the wetland boundary should be surveyed and plotted onto a plan sheet if required by a town. We recommend that the owner provide demarcations such as signs on posts at each of the wetland boundary flag locations along the northern and eastern sides of the wetland to provide a visual barrier, notifying the residents to keep out of the wetland. We recommend carefully removing the large limbs, trees, stumps, boards, wire fencing, rope, and other large miscellaneous debris from the wetland area. We recommend that this work be done during a dry time, typically summer of the year, during the year, and it would be done by hand, so we don't have any disturbance to wetland soils or a lot of wetland vegetation. We're recommending that native non-invasive plants be installed in the upland review area to the north and to the east of the wetland. And finally, we're recommending that the owner consult with a landscaper to determine how best to remove invasive species from that western slope and provide soil stabilization, slope stabilization. That gets a little bit beyond my professional expertise. So we're recommending a landscaper be brought in for that portion of the property.
This Commissioner Bass, I have a question. That stump looked relatively large to be removed by hand. Are we removing the stump?
We're recommending removing the stump. Some of it may not be able to, but everything in the wetland area, like the stump and the tree log is kind of on the edge of the wetland, so maybe they could use a machine and pick it up.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but everything in the wetland can be cut up and then taken out.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. As I mentioned previously, there are mature trees within the upland review area to the east of the wetland. There's also dense herbaceous vegetation growth in that area. So what we're recommending is installing 28 native non-invasive shrubs within that area that will tolerate shady conditions, kind of like in a moderately well-drained area adjacent to the wetland. So we're recommending a combination, but not limited to shadbush, black chokeberry, gray dogwood, and nannyberry. Species substitutions based on availability may occur as long as they're approved by the design team, us, and town staff. Lately, a lot of the vegetation suppliers have been encountering some supply issues, and I'm not sure exactly why. But so there may be some substitutions, but as long as we can approve them previous to installation, that should work out fine. There's a sketch map on page 9 indicating the locations of the recommended shrub plantings. It's pretty much a double row of plantings. And those plantings really are intended to form a natural buffer along the wetland edge and also to provide wildlife habitat, food sources, and cover nesting sites and that sort of thing. We believe it will be necessary for the landowner to periodically maintain the planting area to remove invasive species because there are several on the site, including mugwort, garlic mustard, multiflora rose, burning bush, Japanese barberry, and bittersweet. And they were all observed within like the upland review area and the uplands on the site. As we typically recommend, the planting should be watered as necessary and as recommended by the plant materials provider. I also recommended a seed mixture that would be suitable for a shaded area, just in case there are some bare spots or bare patches that need to be stabilized with herbaceous cover during installation or during the debris removal from the wetland and the edge of the wetland. And then we also just recommend some follow-up inspections, the initial inspection just to verify that everything's been installed. And then for 3 subsequent years, just an inspection to confirm everything is surviving and that there are no erosion issues or invasive species issues. So that pretty much summarizes the report. And see if you have any questions.
This is Commissioner Vassar. Jamie, you only received this today, as I understand it?
Correct.
So I'm sure, because this is a rather extensive report, you're going to want some time to review this.
So, I mean, I think it wouldn't hurt to spend a little bit more time reviewing it. However, I also understand that the recommendation is that the removal of the material be done during a dry period of time, primarily the summer, and we're going to be moving out of that period of time. So, it might be that the commission decides some actions are actionable at this time and other things need additional information. Or the commission may just want to wait until the September meeting. It could just potentially delay the period of time frame, the window time frame that they have to implement some of these recommendations.
Well, I guess to that point, Commissioner Bassman, it doesn't probably get much drier than where we've been recently.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, is it possible to initiate the removal aspect of this in the near term? And staff can review the plantings, the material, the recommendation regarding mitigation. And then we deal with that at the September meeting?
Yeah, I mean, so taking a quick look at the mitigation recommendations. One is that the wetland line should be surveyed and plotted on the plan if required by the town. I think that would be a good thing for the commission to require, particularly as this was delineated previously back in 2018, I believe. And they had to go back out and do it again due to the activity. So I think that would be a good thing for the homeowner to also have in his records. And then number 2 is provide demarcation such as signs on posts at each wetland boundary flag location along the northern and eastern sides of the wetland boundary to provide a visual boundary. I think that's another good recommendation. So like those 2 I think are actionable, and then 3 is the removal of items, which I think would be actionable. And then I think 4 and 5 are both things that the commission would want, and maybe we just take another quick look at those to see if there's any additional information the commission knows that they would want to review relative to those items. So I think one question I had that wasn't extremely clear from the information provided is the extent of the areas to be seeded. I would want a little bit more information on that, which might be helpful when once the wetland has been added to the survey. I'm not sure what the time frame for turnaround on that would be, because I know that surveyors are generally speaking quite busy these days. And then the other thing is the consult a professional landscaper to determine if any topsoil is necessary. I feel like the commission is going to want to be involved in the review of that plan that they're suggesting the landscaper come up with regarding whether or not that slope needs to have topsoil added and how to address the invasive species. And so I guess the other question is this area an area to be planted with the proposed seed mix, or was there an alternative for that area?
The seed mix that I had recommended was for the upland review area planting location.
Okay.
And then, yeah, it would be up to really the landscaper, because I'm really not sure what he would utilize there and what's necessary for like topsoil or anything like that.
So I think really it might just be number 5 that needs additional information for the commission to make a decision, as long as the commission thinks that the 20 shrubs along the wetland boundary is sufficient.
Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, I'm not enough of an expert to know whether 28, 25, or 32 were the right number of shrubs, but somebody representing the commission, whether that's staff or not, needs to say, yeah, that's about right, and here's the kind that we're okay with. If that's going to take additional time, in my mind, so be it, as opposed to being able to to deal with number 5 this evening, but it certainly looks like before 3 can commence, that you have to get the boundary straight.
Yeah, so the boundaries have been marked in the field recently, so that information should be there.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it would be good for the surveying team, if possible, to get out there before the removal of the material, just to make sure that the flags don't disappear and then that soil scientists have to go back out.
Yeah,
So,
I was concerned about the comment about, they're kind of busy. And so,
well, you never
again,
know. Maybe they've got another job in Brantford and they can add it onto their day or
okay.
something like that. So I think it's worth reaching out, having the property owner reach out and see how quickly he can get that done.
Let me ask this question, this is Commissioner Bassman. We're here with a second violation. I think maybe because from what I thought the words were, we were getting a lot of cooperation. Are we past that point now?
I believe so. We've gotten the report, which is the big step. The initial violation back in 2019, 2020 kind of fell off because the site was stabilized and other things just kept coming in. And then the office was contacted about additional activity that had occurred. The owner was responsive and met with us on site. So I think it was kind of a matter of kind of emphasizing that this is important and it's not going to fall off again and it needs to be resolved. And I think we've gotten to that point, hopefully. So one of the things that I'd be looking for, and I'm not sure if it's in here or if Jen mentioned it and I just didn't absorb it. But as far as the plantings, I'd be looking at, is there any sort of spacing that came up with that number of plantings?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, generally I look at 5 to 7 feet on center for buffer plantings. And they're kind of 2 staggered rows is what I try to do too, to get it filled in a little better, faster.
I mean, that seems pretty reasonable to me based on what we typically see. But if the commission would be more confident in waiting to finalize a decision on those points, but there are some points that the commission feels would be something they can determine at this time, or the commission can just say it all has to wait. But I do think it would be beneficial if the commission wants 1 through 3 in particular to happen, and they already know that, to let the homeowner know that right now and see if he can't get work started on that this season, rather than holding it up to potentially next year.
Yeah, you want to scroll up, pardon me, scroll down so we can see 3 again. Yeah. I guess, Jamie, if you're comfortable with the number of shrubs and the manner in which they're installed, and it sounds like you are, I guess I have no reason to want to hold up this work. I don't know if anybody feels that they want to weigh in on some of the mitigation activity, but I'm kind of relying on staff at this point to quickly look at the material that they received and let's get this project underway and clear this cease and correct.
Sorry to interrupt, Katie Blanchett. I don't know if maybe I did see that the property owner was on. I mean, maybe you want to ask him if he's even prepared to start this, because if not, if he's not ready to start anything, then there's no point in rushing and having to decide anything.
Point well taken.
I do also want to, okay, I do have 2 other things that I thought of that I'll address after you let the homeowner talk.
If the homeowner is on, that would be a good time to weigh in.
Yes, I'm here. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I missed if I had what was the question?
Are you guys removing the large limbs, trees, shrubs, boards, wire fencing, rope, and other large miscellaneous debris from the wetland area by hand during the dry time in such a manner that it doesn't disturb the wetland soils or remove wetland vegetation?
Like if I'm ready to proceed, that you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, I obviously that's something I have to reach out and find. I don't know what that cost is, so I'm definitely willing to move forward on it. Absolutely. I want to try to get this done for you guys, as soon as possible. I just have to reach out because again, I don't know what something like that would even cost, you know what I mean? And obviously, but yeah, definitely I'm going to reach out ASAP. And I'll start calling around tomorrow to see what it would cost to, because especially due to the fact that that's done by hand, that's not going to be a little, I know there, from what I saw, it's the debris is kind of bigger, so they are going to have to cut it down and take it by hand. So again, yeah, I definitely I'll start calling out around first thing tomorrow morning, get people out there to give me quotes, and yeah, absolutely, I definitely want to try to move that forward as soon as possible.
So kind of to that, following up on that, I do think it's important to kind of set a time frame for this activity to be completed. So I don't know if the commission wants to hold off to get feedback from the property owner on what is a reasonable time frame for him to complete this based off of his contacts. Just so that way we're not continuously playing the game of moving deadlines.
Well, yeah, because there's a couple things that the homeowner needs to do here. Not only number 3, but we've got to find a surveyor that's going to be available to do that portion on number 1, and somebody, whether that's the homeowner himself or get somebody to do the demarcation point. So, I mean, there's a fair amount of activity that's looking to happen in a relatively short period of time if we're talking about the next couple months.
So maybe what the best way to move forward is to acknowledge the fact that it sounds like the commission is going to likely want to implement recommendations 1 through 5, that a time frame should be submitted for completion of the items in 1 through 4, and that the homeowner should consult a professional landscaper and have that plan identified in number 5 ready for review at the September 8th meeting.
Sounds like a plan.
Timeframes and landscape plan for area along western boundary for the September meeting. And the commission would then review all of that activity or all of that information and make a decision on when this activity needs to happen by, with some reasonable consideration of what's feasible, and then also have the information for that area on the slope, because right now the commission really doesn't have any information beyond the fact that it should be further assessed.
Yep.
And then one thing I had thought of is the report identifies a period of at least 3 years. The commission oftentimes has a practice of requiring 5 years, but has reduced it to 3 on some occasions. So again, if the commission's waiting to make a decision, I think that can wait until the next meeting, but I just kind of wanted to mention that. Yep. And I had another thought previously, but I don't remember what it was. So if the commission thinks it's appropriate, then I could send a follow-up letter saying that consideration of the mitigation plan will be continued to the next meeting, and that the commission is requesting additional information regarding timeframes to be able to complete reasonable timeframes to complete these items in as timely a fashion as possible, and for a professional landscaper plan pursuant to number 5 of the report by Soil Science and Environmental Services, Inc. Shall be submitted for the September meeting as well. So the September meeting is again on September 8th. A lot of times the commission likes to have the information a week before, so that way we can get it out to commissioners and staff has time to review it. Does the commission want to set a deadline of submitting this information by September 1st?
That's been our practice. So the bottom line is cease and correct 220601 and the second NOV associated with 20 Huntington Drive continues.
Correct. Will be continued to the September 8th meeting.
Anything else on 220601? Okay. Cease and correct 220701, 6 Partridge Lane, clearing and earthwork within a conservation deed restricted area. This is a just cause hearing continued from our July 28th special meeting.
Good evening.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So on this cease and correct order, the commission has not yet made a decision whether to uphold and modify, or overturn the cease and correct order. The commission did have a special meeting at the end of August, or sorry, the end of July, to review the activity, and had a couple of questions to send to town council. Those questions were sent to town council, as was a letter received from the receiver of the letter, the violation. And town council is looking for a little bit more information to respond to not only the commission's initial questions, but also the content of that letter. So we do not have any responses at this time. So it'd be staff's recommendation that the commission continue this item to be able to consider the information, that the responses that town council will have. Whether that's to the next regularly scheduled meeting, or if the commission thinks that this needs to be addressed sooner and wants to schedule a special meeting, that's up to the commission. We can go through some of the materials if the commission feels like that would be helpful. However, the only new item is material, the letter, and supporting letter from some of the other parties that are affected by the conservation restriction.
Are both, this is Commissioner Basserman, are both those items in the Dropbox, Jamie?
I believe so. Let me just quickly double check. They should be. But I also had other conditions of approval. So let me make sure I'm not speaking before
I put them in there myself. So unless you took them out, they should be in
I
there.
did not take them out. Okay.
Well, I mean, my
Yes,
point
they
is,
are. We've got the letter from Attorney Marjorie Shansky and a letter of support from neighbors, and also another copy of the deed restriction language. So those materials are in the Dropbox and commissioners can take a look at it. I can also screen share it if the commission would like. The letter outlines a lot of the things that were presented at the meeting regarding concerns of the commission's authority to enforce the conservation restriction, identifying that it is conservation restriction and not a conservation easement, which is indeed correct. Staff is not arguing that point. And also mentioning that parties that are with the conservation restriction, the lots that have the conservation restriction on it are open to modifying the restriction to allow recreation. So again, town council had questions the commission asked at the last meeting, and then I think they're also looking to respond to some of the items in that letter as well. So
yeah, this is Commissioner Basserman. I just wonder about the merit of, going through that if we don't have a complete record from town attorney on a number of the items that have been raised by various parties.
I think there's a lot of questions that have been asked that would be helpful to have answers before going any further, really. But it's up to the commission to decide. And then also I was looking at the files in the Dropbox, and I think I might add some additional materials from the original subdivision approval regarding the conservation deed restriction. And those materials would also be sent to the receiver of the letter and their party to make sure that they have that information in advance of the next meeting as well. Just to help address the question that the commission had kind of hinted at the last meeting regarding intent, just to help provide any documentation to support that or what have you.
Where are the other commissioners on this? I mean, the other aspect is, we don't have a full vote tonight. We've got some commissioners that are not present. Do you want to go through the material this evening as Jamie talked about the various letters that we have, et cetera? Or do you want to wait, review it in the with all the other material in the Dropbox and save our powder until the next meeting?
I would go with that.
This Commissioner Papantonis, I just want to remind you that I recuse myself from this matter.
Thank you. Yeah.
Commissioner Steinberg, I agree with your assessment.
All right. At the last meeting, we did talk about how the site is currently stable. Does the commission feel that there, oh wait, sorry, we do have a raised hand. Before I guess I finish with my comment, Peter, do you want to allow for public comment?
Yes. Attorney Shansky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a continuation of a public hearing, so I do think that fairness dictates that we be able to say good evening to the commission and indicate that we are here. Mr. Greenberg is here. I see that Mr. Mandel may also be here. I'm not sure he's here for this because you are correct. We are waiting for town council's opinion, but I would like the record to reflect that we are present and accounted for. And I would like to also suggest to the chair, if you were interested, I could answer the question about the minutes that was raised at the outset of this meeting.
Refresh my memory, Attorney Shansky, on that item.
The chair queried whether I had said that the agency doesn't hold the conservation easement, and you thought that I had said the agency does not have jurisdiction to enforce the conservation restriction, and both of those are true. It is because the agency does not hold the conservation restriction that it does not have standing to enforce the conservation restriction. And the reason I submitted a letter, not only memorializing what I had said to the commission, but providing legal citation. So that might facilitate council's review and at least have both sides of the story on the table at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Shansky. I certainly appreciate the presence this evening, and even more importantly, the clarification on the minutes, which I gather at this point in time, based on that comment, the minutes are good as written.
Your judgment, but I believe that's correct.
Okay. That wasn't a legal judgment, by the way. That's just.
Nor was it legal advice.
Jamie, anything else? You had something you wanted to offer? Yes, no, you were going to say something.
I did.
Attorney Shansky raised her hand and.
Oh, I think I was asking whether the commission thought it was necessary to have a special meeting or if you're okay with continuing it to the next regularly scheduled meeting, given the discussion that was held at the last meeting regarding site stabilization, or the fact that the site didn't have any imminent erosion concerns.
I guess in my mind, I don't know where everybody else is, but hopefully, given the framework of a virtual meeting, it would seem to me that we could pull something, hopefully we could pull something together sooner than a month. So assuming that the parties are available, a special meeting might not be a bad idea here, even though the site is stable. Assuming that we can get the appropriate comment back from town attorney, sufficient to schedule such a meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Where's everybody else? You want to wait the 30 days, or do you want to do something sooner than that?
Mr. Chairman, I beg your pardon for interrupting. This is Attorney Shansky. I don't know how long town council is away, but I do know that it is a punishing experience to return from vacation. And I would hate to constrain his efforts artificially. We are okay with 30 days. And in that event, it would give him ample time, sufficient time to respond to the agency's questions.
Far be it for me to rattle the tin cup across the cage bars here. So let's table this until the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is September 8th. Am I right on that?
Yes, September 8th. All right, so since no decisions being made, the just cause hearing is being continued to September 8th, and the meeting is scheduled to be held remotely via Zoom.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your participation, Team Greenberg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, other business. We have some application forms. I assume this comes from you, Jamie.
Yes and no. So it comes from the commission revising the regulations, which become effective tomorrow. Well, one of them does, and the other one is, oh yeah, we were going to bring this to the commission. So because the commission revised the regulations, the application form needs to be revised, particularly given that the fees changed, and our application form addresses what the fees structure is. So can everyone see this?
Yes.
I'm not sure how much you guys really pay attention to the application form, but for the most part, it remains the same on page 1. I don't think there's really any changes on page 1. Page 2, I think we did a little bit of formatting edits to try and help make it read a bit smoother, but it's the same content. And then page 3 is the fees page. So this is what has changed. So we've put in the total area of disturbance fee, which is the main fee that applies to every application. All residential uses use the upper portion of the table, and all commercial and other uses use the lower portion to figure out what their application fee is based on that table. If there's direct wetland impact, then the Schedule A fee applies. The Schedule A fee did not change, so that's the same. And same thing with subdivision, re-subdivision. Public hearing fee remains the same. Oh. I believe we removed the application per cease and correct fee from the regs, so number 5 should be striked from the application form. If the commission's satisfied with everything else, I think you can accept the application form with the modification of removing number 5 from page 3. And then the checklist is the last page. And again, we did a little bit of formatting changes, and we added this: please contact the Inland Wetland Office for the amount of copies of documents required. Not all applications require all items. Contact the Inland Wetland Office with any questions, because previously we said, 11 copies of this, 3 copies of that. And a lot of commissioners have indicated they don't want paper copies. So we don't want 5 paper copies that we're just going to be recycling as soon as they come in through the door. So we figure on a case-by-case basis, we can inform people how many copies we need based off of the commissioners that are on the commission at the time. And then worst case scenario, if somebody really wants to know, they can refer to the regulations, which have paper copy numbers. But this is our attempt to try and reduce paper waste. But all of the requirements remain the same. Any questions from the commission?
No.
I just had a little, there was like a parentheses after some of the numbers, and just number
Oh, I
two.
see.
I just noticed that myself. I'll fix that tomorrow.
All right, so we can fix the parenthesis after number 2 on page 4 and strike number 5 on page 3. Let me just. I'll just double check that we got rid of that. Yeah, that fee was removed, so I would recommend that number 5 be striked on page 3 as well.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, on the public hearing fee, where it says if applicable.
If there's a public hearing.
So if there is a public hearing, it's definitely $300.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, so that's the standard application form.
Yep, so if the commission wants to make a motion, that's what we would need to adopt it.
I guess, does Commissioner Bass want to make a motion that the commission approve the standard application form for the Branford Inland Wetlands Commission? Is there a date on this?
Revised July 29th.
Revised July 29, 2022, with the modification that item 5 on page 3 be stricken from the application form, and that parentheses on item 2 is the same page. I'm even sure.
Page 4.
Page 4 be corrected, removed. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Steinberg. I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? Can we do a general consensus here, Jamie, or not?
Should do a roll call.
Do a roll call. All right. Commissioner Steinberg.
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Meinson.
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis.
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Now the town project.
All right, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Let me pull that up and screen share. So I think the biggest difference is we've kind of restructured it, but it's basically the same thing. It's town project, so we ask for a lot less information. Address of parcel, description of project, who's submitting the application, what department they're from, authorization from the first selectman, since they're generally the owner's signature on an application for the town. And then the bottom part remains the same. So I think the biggest difference is that we added the first selectman authorization signature line, and I think we modified before in earlier iterations of this, it was, I believe, the town engineer and the wastewater treatment superintendent that could submit applications, but there's other people such as open parks and open space that benefit from this form, so we made it more open-ended.
Commissioner Basserman, is the town project application form identified at all in our regulations?
It is, in the sense that it says that, let's see, any person intending to conduct regulated activity shall apply for a permit to conduct such activity. And then blah, 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 blah. Any new application, application forms may be obtained in the office of the Inland Wetland Agency and on the town website. The application shall include the application form provided by the town, by the Branford Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency, and such information as prescribed by Section 7. So basically, you can make whatever application forms you want, but you have to go through the process of approving them.
But if it was a town project, you wouldn't have a town project application form and a standard application form?
No, that's not been our practice.
Right, so it's one or the other.
Correct. So if it's town projects, it would use this form, and if it's any other party, it would be, generally speaking, the general application form.
All right, who wants to make a motion to approve the changes to the town project authorization form?
This is Commissioner Canaro, I'd like to make a motion to approve the town project application form
Dated,
dated April 19th, 2022.
Commissioner Pavantonis, second.
anybody want to weigh in with any additional information? Okay, Commissioner Finaro. Voting,
Commissioner Canaro, aye.
Commissioner Meinson,
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis,
Commissioner Pavantonis, aye.
Commissioner Steinberg,
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Okay. We got a barn going up, huh? Agent approval?
Yep, so this is brought to the commission, and the commission was okay with agent approval. And the wetland permit has been issued, and they're before planning and zoning right now, I believe.
Gotcha. Correspondence and announcements?
Before we go on to that, Peter, do you want to go back to the tabled item before I forget?
Oh, the one
26
that we,
Evergreen Place.
yeah, yep, go ahead.
Okay.
Is the applicant here? No.
I don't believe so, but I kind of want to try and give a quick overview of it so that the commission can determine if this is the right, or at least try to determine if this is the right direction or if you need more information. So a resident contacted me. They're looking to do a little bit of vegetation maintenance on their property, primarily invasive maintenance, but a little bit of additional activity as well. So I told her to submit a jurisdictional ruling request to see if it was considered as of right as conservation type activities. So
Commissioner Basserman, is this in the wetland or in the upland review?
it's in the upland review area, and a little bit of it is in a deed restriction area. But they're not looking, yeah. It's vegetation management is the only thing that they're looking to do. But the letter's a little bit, it's not quite as clear as I was hoping it would be. Let me figure out screen share. Okay. So, also spelling's a little bit off, but they're looking to remove euonymus, which is burning bush, and invasive species. Undesired growth 6 feet into woods at rear property perimeter, including invasive plants and trees such as oriental bittersweet, American elm, Japanese honeysuckle, burning bush, and blackberry. Remove leaning poplar on left side of yard. Remove fallen tree at left side of yard. Prune Norway maple, which is an invasive. Prune 2 maples at rear center and raise lower canopy. Liberate arborvitae at front of house. The arborvitae at the front of house is pretty far away from the wetland. Prune flowering dogwood. So a lot of this pruning I think would fall under residential, could fall under residential maintenance of property too. Brush will be chipped and debris will be removed. Stumps grind. Plan is to plant mountain laurel at removal site if approved before end of season. Requesting approval to spray BT and neem oil on back trees due to illness, brown spot, and gall disease on numerous trees. Arborvitae also with fungal disease called dieback. So a minute. So this is the GIS map that I had provided to the resident. Oh no. Sorry, my Adobe's crashing. Okay, maybe. So this is the end of Evergreen Place. The house. And then this is the highlight is the area that the resident is talking about managing 5 to 6 feet back from the edge of lawn essentially. And this row of evergreen trees that we're seeing, I believe is the limits of the conservation restriction. So this activity would be in the conservation restriction area, which says no removal of vegetation without approval from the agency. So given the fact that it's mostly invasives, and I do have some photos, what you're looking at is essentially a wall of euonymus, aka burning bush. I thought it might classify as jurisdictional ruling. So basically, the main thing I would like for the commission to address is if you think you can make a decision, make a decision, or if you're thinking, no, this is more of an application, then I'd like to let the resident know that so that they can submit an application. So here's the row of evergreen trees kind of demarking the conservation area.
Can you put that list of activities back up?
Sure. And I do have a copy of the site plan as well, which shows the deed restriction area, if that would be helpful for the commission to look at as well.
You know, I don't know, less concerned about the pruning activity, but you know, there's a fair amount of other activity, which is removal and planting.
Yeah. So, yeah, so the removal of euonymus, I mean, again, it could be considered a conservation activity. However, also a lot of times when there's removal of invasives, the commission wants to see plantings, which I mentioned, and she did mention that she's looking to put in mountain laurel, but there's nothing about like, you know, at what density or anything like that.
Yeah, how many and what the spacing is, and you know, do we want the small shrubs? Do we want something with a canopy to control invasives back, or you know, is there a maintenance plan for this?
I feel like shrubs would be more appropriate for the scenario, because I feel like she would have to clear further back to put in trees.
Right. Okay.
It definitely would be a continuing project. So sounds like the commission definitely wants more information. So the other question is, do you want more information and keep it in this vector for now, or do you want me to tell her that she needs to submit an application? And it might, and the commission has had a practice in projects like this sometimes. I mean, it kind of depends. I think we need more information on the trees to be removed. It looks like it's mostly invasives, but there does appear to be some possibly natives. She lists American elm as, I believe, a tree to be removed, but it could be a diseased tree, which is, you know, why she's looking to have it removed. I wouldn't imagine she's looking to remove it if it's healthy.
This would be an application with the new fees, correct?
Yes. However, the commission has had a past practice if requested sometimes of reducing fees, which is what I was starting to say, but
Yeah.
I'm also indicating that this is on a threshold where I'm not entirely sure if it falls into that or not. I think there's just a little bit too much unknown.
Well, I think for that purpose, yes, it should continue to be an application.
Okay.
And we would certainly consider, given the fact that they're looking to get rid of invasives, et cetera. But, you know, if we had a good understanding of the plan, how it was going to happen, you know, we might be certainly willing to consider a reduction. I guess my point was, with the new application, with the new regulations, what would the, without any reduction, what would the permit fee be?
That also gets interesting in these kind of projects, because so it'd probably be, you know, 5 feet times whatever linear distance.
Right.
So I'm not sure what that distance is. I'm just showing you real quick the site plan from when the house was proposed. So this isn't the actual location of the house, but approximate. And You can see this line right here is the conservation restriction. So, and then the wetland is off-site.
Mm-hmm.
So while it is in the conservation restriction area, it's still a little ways away from the wetland area. And like I said, it's a lot of euonymus. There's also some multiflora rose. There is bittersweet out there, which she is already maintaining. And I told her to continue to do so, because as soon as you stop, you're gonna be fighting a losing battle. So
I think for consistency, we should go with an application.
is that a general consensus from the commission?
Yes, Commissioner Steinberg, I agree.
All right, so I'll inform the resident that the commission reviewed the materials and determined that an application should be submitted.
This is Commissioner Ferraro. Can they get the fee waived if it's a conservation?
I can mention to them the possibility that I can point out the section for fee waiver, so that if they are concerned about that, they can submit a written request, because a written request is necessary for that to be granted or considered. Because a lot of what she's looking to do, I think, is a good thing for the environment, for the, granted, she's got a losing battle for the euonymus, but if she can maintain it along her property line edge a bit, then I think that would be good. And if she puts in some native stuff, it'll have some benefit to the local wildlife and whatnot.
Okay. And you're gonna put that in writing?
Yeah, I'll send it to her in writing.
Yep.
And basically what I'll do is I'll on our form, we have the determination, and I'll just say that application required.
You're gonna talk to us about paper copies?
Paper copies, so that's twofold. One is, as I mentioned earlier, there's new regulations effective starting tomorrow. Do any commissioners want us to send them a paper copy of the regulations so that you have a paper copy you can reference?
Yes.
Looks like Peter, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone not want a paper copy? All right, so everyone's getting a paper copy. And then the second part of that question is, as far as application materials, if we have the option of telling people that they don't need to submit a paper copy, who would rather not get paper copies of materials in lieu of reviewing applications online? So it looks like Fenara would rather not get paper copies. Anyone else?
I'll talk to you about it, Commissioner Papantonis, tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, if anyone doesn't want paper copies, talk with Katie about it, because she's the one that mails out everything.
Sorry, is this Commissioner Fenara? Make sure the link works.
Okay, yeah, and if so the link generally works, and if it doesn't work, let us know, because I don't know why, but sometimes it randomly decides to stop working.
I've had problems with it.
Yeah, don't hesitate to let us know if that happens, but hopefully we've gotten that resolved. All right.
Last up, we have the annual meeting of Caguwick on Saturday, 10/29. It's going to be in North Haven at used to be Ramada Inn. I don't know what it is now. It is right now being planned as a in-person meeting. We haven't had an in-person meeting for some years now with COVID. As we continue to monitor the activity and talk to the state. But at this point in time, it's an in-person meeting. Generally lunch is provided, and there's bifurcated sessions, so that information will be coming out in September. And you get a chance to sign up on a Saturday and hear about flora and fauna and how that impacts our lives as commissioners.
It's a good training, and if you're interested in attending, let staff know because there is a budget to register commissioners for training. And then just to quickly follow up, we sent out an email yesterday. We were informed that Deep is having a training as well. So we sent out the information on that. If anyone's interested, let us know sooner rather than later because its space is limited.
Was that the Woodland Deep training?
Yep.
That looked interesting.
Yeah, they've got 50 spots per session, so and they sent it out to all the inland wetland agents, so everybody's informed. So like I said, if you're interested in registering and you want the town to pay for it, reach out to myself or Katie, and we'll see what we can do for you.
It's Katie. In light of what happened this morning, I might recommend to them that if they want to go, that they register themselves and pay and have us reimburse them, because there was some talk this morning about having to rush things, and the problem with this registration is that you're not registered until you pay.
Yeah.
So if you can, I would register yourself and then we can submit for a reimbursement for you, because otherwise you might not get a spot, because I don't know how long it's going to take them to act on it.
So if you do go that route, just make sure you print a copy, whether it's saving a PDF or a paper copy of the receipt from registering. So that way you have something that we can submit to finance to address the fact that, yes, you did register.
Katie, are you saying the potential delay is with a town department?
It's because the financing has a process they have to go through for any purchasing. And so we fast tracked it because we want to make sure that we got registered. But then it's also kind of a weird registration process, the way they have it set up. So
yeah, usually when you register for something, you can register and then finance will, you submit the form to finance and have them send off a check. And that's usually sufficient for whatever trainings we go to. But for this one, you were not registered until they had that credit card payment. So, and so it ended up causing a bit of a ruffle. I mean, and admittedly, like, they were justified because we
but if we trickled it with one commissioner here, one commissioner there, you do have a point. Yeah, they would ruffle even more.
The only good thing about going through you guys is if there's a limited budget, you control that.
We have plenty of money.
We have plenty of money. Okay.
At this time, we have plenty of money. So
plenty of money.
That's not.
You heard it here first. Plenty of money.
Ask us.
I mean, come April, we might have a problem.
Yeah, July 1st, new budget. So
yeah,
for $25 and 7 commissioners, we have plenty of money.
We're not tapping into the COVID fund here, are we?
PPP money.
All right. Hey, thank you for joining and good night.
Thanks, guys.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. I think I saw Melissa raise her hand.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Brantford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at brantfordtv.org.